Hey, I know, trust me. I want to come see you too, baby. I know. And it's only like a 4 hour drive, but I got one thing to do. All I got to do tomorrow is try to get my car registered, and if nothing else crazy happens, then I'll be on my way, and it only takes me Oh, don't let that. Okay, so everything was going great. I got my car registered, and literally the second I pulled in my driveway, my belt broke. You can see it down there all in pieces. The belt is pretty easy to fix though. If I can get one locally, I can have my car back on the road. Here's what's going on today. The belt broke yesterday, and the thing about that is about 6 months ago, I replaced the alternator. Now I noticed that there was a little bit of misalignment, like the belt sat off the idler pulley a little after that, and it's always squeaked a little, but I rarely ever drive this car. So I figured I'll check it out eventually. Well, I've put quite a few miles on it, and yesterday the belt finally went. So I know that this underlying issue has something to do with it, and most likely that alternator that got replaced probably needed to be taken back because the pulley is off a little bit. So I'm gonna pull the alternator out and see if there's a way I can still go swap it out. Most likely they're gonna make me pay for another alternator, who knows. We'll get this thing figured out. Alright, how's it going? So there's a few problems I'm kind of addressing in this video. The main thing that happened was the belt broke. I'd gotten my car registered that day, and I was actually planning to go see a friend of mine a few hours away. When I got home and looked at it, I was just like, well, this is kind of ridiculous, but I first targeted the alternator that I replaced, as I kind of explained in there, and you know what it ultimately ended up coming out to be, I think, was the tensioner. It was riding a little bit off, and I don't know if the tensioner was just at such an angle that it caused one part of the belt to get weak after riding that way for a while. Could have been a combination of things. I know with the alternator, the pulley was set a little bit too far back, and then when I got the new one, it was pushed out, like with about 1/8 of an inch clearance between the alternator case and the pulley. So that right there, you know, definitely could have been a few things working together to break the belt. But the crazy thing about that was I put one belt on after redoing the alternator. That belt actually started to shred on the sides a little bit, and I was like, okay, this is ridiculous. Like, I just put a brand new $30 belt on this thing. Why is it, you know, starting to shred up again? Well, that time, what I think actually happened, and I know there was like one time, you know, I'll go drive the car a little bit, I'll come back and check some things. Well, I think when I cleaned all the old rubber out from the first belt that broke, it seemed like some of it I must have missed. It was lodged between one of the air conditioning pipes and kind of like right around where the belt runs, just over there by the AC compressor. So what was happening, I think, was the new belt was rubbing up against that bulk of rubber that was caught against that AC hose, or the AC line. It's a metal line. And it must have caused the belt to heat up, because I can't imagine that tensioner just, I mean, the little bit of angle, even though the old tensioner was failed, and in this video I ended up replacing the tensioner as well. I just don't really know why the belt started to shred a second time. But now it's actually been a little bit, I've been driving on it. So after getting that alternator replaced with the pulley about 1/8 of an inch out, that's definitely keeping the belt off my tensioner frame, you know, the main part of the tensioner the belt used to ride really close to it, and I knew that that wasn't right. So the alternator had a lot to do with that. And then the fact that it is a new tensioner now is also causing the belt to ride a little bit more correctly on the pulley. So I think for the most part we've got this issue fixed, but it did take going through a few things and you know, figuring out, just kind of digging into it a little bit more than just the alternator. So I ended up replacing the tensioner, another belt, the alternator, and while I was in there, I know there was an oil leak, and I went ahead and replaced the oil filter and the O-rings on the cap, even though I didn't do a full oil change. I mean, I get it, you're supposed to do that, but me personally, I don't do oil changes very often. I know that sounds crazy, but I've had vehicles that I've driven to, you know, 250,000 miles, and I'm still getting like full oil pressure. And you know, then again, some of them had leaks, so I'm constantly adding oil to some of them, then I fix the leak. It's not a good practice. Don't listen to me on that. For the 20 years that I've been driving used cars, typically over 10 years old, I've never had any engine problems from not doing regular oil changes. But I'm not telling you guys to be like me. So we're going to get into it, and hopefully you guys get some good information from this video. Maybe it'll solve some of your problems that you're having with your E90, and hopefully help you get back on the road a little quicker. Okay, so over here we've got 4 bolts that hold the alternator on. And then there's the red battery cable you got to take off first. At least on my car you do. Let me see if I can get this a little closer. On my car, you have to take off the red cable first, because this little clip, the little plug, the wire plug, won't come off until you get that cable out of the way. So I've already got the wire plug loose, it just won't slip off all the way. And then after that, you're going to do these 4 bolts. You're going to need this 12mm reverse torque. I guess that's what they call it. Looks like a star on the inside. And there's not too much to the alternator. I don't have to worry about the tensioner since the belt is already broken. Alright, so a little explanation of what's been going on. It took me about 3 hours. I located the correct part, so I had to drive a little ways to go to the correct store to get it. And it has been a common thing in the past that auto part stores have sold me an incorrect part, and I've had to take it back. Now, in some cases, the part still fits the vehicle. In this case, that's what it was, and it happened to be the alternator. Now, in the case of engine accessories, sometimes the part will fit the engine, but the pulley will be misaligned by even 1/8 of an inch. So that's what we're doing this video for mainly, is because I want you guys to be aware that even though a part fits on the engine, if you've gotten a squealing sound, say you changed out an alternator or something, and now all of a sudden you notice a difference, like belt making noises, you need to get in there and question that. You know, look really closely at the alignment. Try to even check it before you go home with the part. If you're comparing like alternators, you know, you're turning in the old alternator because of the core charge. If you don't turn it in, you actually spend more money buying a new one. So make sure that you guys keep this in mind. I mean, this has happened to me more than once on another vehicle. So the alternator was incorrect. I drove with it that way for about 6 months. Even though I knew that something was wrong, I just didn't really chase down the issue. Luckily, I was able to get a hold of the mobile mechanic that saved me on the side of the freeway, and he was able to get with his store so they could transfer the warranty over, and I was able to get my alternator swapped out under warranty. Otherwise, it would have cost me $300, and you know, nobody wants to deal with that. I mean, come on, retail stores make a mistake, sell you the wrong part. Even though we were on the side of the freeway, you know, we're not looking for a 1/16 inch difference in the pulley to make sure we got the right part. You know, we're trusting that they sold us the correct part. So, you know, it happens a lot. It's not like big retail stores are gonna, you know, it's not like anything's gonna happen to them, but I mean, the small guys, you know, we got to look out for ourselves, because I mean, $300 is a lot of money for a lot of people. So yes, check your parts, make sure they're correct. Okay, I want to show you guys a little comparison between these E90 tensioners. Now, sometimes you'll look in there and you'll see that your belt is riding off the edge by a little bit. And I want to show you guys the reason why. Now you can clearly see, if I hold these two, if I hold it now back here, it lines up with that one. If I hold those two right together, you can see from the front pretty clearly. Hold on, let me see if I can get it. I was able to tell earlier that the pulleys looked like they were off line from each other, and you could kind of see it looks bent and kind of out of whack on the old one. And I think that's what's causing the belt to not ride properly, and then possibly break. So I'm gonna change it out and see if my belt rides on the right track instead of hanging a little bit off the edge like it did with the old one. All right, I'm in here replacing the alternator, and I figured I would shoot a little mini DIY today. One of the things you might notice on these E90 BMWs, you know, 3 Series, whatever, if you get a lot of oil around here, you notice it's leaking a lot, you need to replace the O-ring seal on this cap. You know, you can see it right there. It's the rubber seal, and it looks kind of flat. It's been in there for a while, it's been baking. You get a pick tool, pull that thing out. The filter comes with a new one. There's also a couple other little O-rings that you're gonna replace, and then it looks like they give you the stuff that goes on the, I don't know, there's one that goes on here too. So, I don't know, I've never messed with this exact kit. I'll pull it apart and make sure everything's right. But that's the main thing, the O-ring seal on this cap. And if you need an oil filter wrench, this was like $5 at Harbor Freight. So, go get one. There we go, we have our freshly rebuilt oil filter cap. New seals. Make sure that's in there. And put it back in. Boom. Now, you really don't have to tighten this like crazy. I mean, just watch that the seal goes through there and doesn't squeeze out anywhere around the edges. And I mean, you could probably hand tighten this thing and be fine. And there's just no reason to like wrench this thing down super tight, because the seal is what keeps it from leaking. It's not how tight you have it. So I'll put the wrench on it and just get it to bottom out. That's interesting, trying to do this with one hand. Should have brought my phone clip. But mechanical hands, oh yeah. And really just till it stops. I mean, I'm not gonna torque this thing down. There we go. Cool. Clean up my oil mess. Now we've got the new alternator in. New alternator's in. I'll get this air box put back and crank it up. Now for those of you who are into all kinds of different DIYs, I found a really cool link for a smart saw that apparently you can build at home. It shows you can build all kinds of different things out of it. Check out the link in the description if you're interested. Thanks a lot, you guys, and see you on the next one.